Welcome back, and we'll continue on with the lessons in style. Write powerful and beautiful sentences. So where we left off was this here, the repetitive of anticipate in advance, which is saying the same thing, and past history, which is saying the same thing. So she tried to anticipate what he would do based on the past. You can also bring this phrase to the beginning, based on the past. She tried to anticipate what he would do. So, learning to be able to see sentences like this, to be able to see when there's a phrase in a sentence that you could add to the beginning, then adding this kind of variety once in a while is good, because you don't want every sentence to start with a noun or with a determiner like the or a, or with something like it, or any type of pronoun. You want to start some sentence with phrases or different things. She wore a dress that was pink in color. Definitely repetitive, right? And so what you can look for when is look for like that was, that is, and on master edit there's actually a function that does just that. It highlights all of these common phrases like that was, that is, and so forth. And the reason why you want to highlight this in your document is to find places like this when you say something that doesn't need to be there. Another one is with. So looking for the word with too is important. Because what happens is he ran around like a chicken with no head could easily be he ran around like a headless chicken. So you want to find places where with and then following with is just a description of what was previous, or here, that is just simply telling you information about the dress, which could be simply stated before the word dress. So all this information that comes after that was, or that is, or which are, or which were, or so forth, after those kinds of phrases, could then be brought, just that one idea word can be brought to the beginning. And there's no need for in color, because pink obviously is a color. She wore a pink dress, rather than she wore a dress that was pink in color. So this is just a way to make your sentences leaner and better. Remove as many of those as possible, or many of these as possible. Where is, where are, where was, I think it should be a comma there. There is, there was, there are, etc. And like I said, master edit highlights, it has a function that highlights all these for you, among many other very useful functions like the paramedic method, and another function that highlights all repetitive words, like if you use the word river 5 times in a paragraph, it highlights them all. And it's just so helpful in editing. It saves so much time. It's awesome. Okay. I just said so a lot of times. So if I were, writing that, which I wouldn't write like that, but if I were, then master edit would have caught all that for me. To lengthen sentences, add resumptive modifiers, summative modifiers, free modifiers, and introductory phrases. And this is where we're going to get into a lot of examples. And from this point on, we're really just going to be going through examples and showing how to rewrite sentences, how to find our sentences that are not as lean and as good, that aren't following these rules. So really just how to use these rules, what they are. But let's look at what resumptive modifier. Resumptive means a resumptive modifier, and it's not misspelled. We're just, this version of Word just doesn't know that word. It just means that you're resuming a sentence. So you'll have like your sentence, and oftentimes you can change like a which clause into a resumptive modifier. She swam across the river and almost died. And let's say it went on with which, right? Which was a wild river known for drowning whoever tried to cross it, or something like that. Then you can just change, remove the which was. Oftentimes you can do that. You can often just mark off which was, or you can mark off that was, that is, which is. You can just erase it altogether, and then you get your sentence how you need it. She traveled to the store on the other side of town. So this was which was a wild river. You just get rid of which was. Now it's a wild river known for drowning whoever tried to cross it. And so when you're resuming, you're picking up a word, and you're using that word, and then you're resuming with that word. And oftentimes the structure will be, when you repeat the word, you follow it with that. So it'd be like, she swam across the river and almost died. A wild river that was known for drowning, but I removed the word that because it's not needed. And that's another thing to get used to, is knowing when to remove the word that, because it makes just as much sense without it, so you don't need it, so remove it. Okay, so here we go. The resumptive modifier then is taking an idea from the first clause, repeating it, and continuing the sentence rather than having to start a new sentence or not having to use the which clause, because you don't want to use which clauses that much. She swam across the river and almost died, a wild river known for drowning whoever tried to cross it. He valued his independence and fought for those that threatened it, fought them in the streets or wherever the thugs opposed them. Now this example, it's not like a double resumptive, but you're resuming two things in a sentence. I guess you can call it that. He valued his independence and fought those that threatened it. So he fought them in the streets or wherever the thugs opposed him. You can also resume two things. So for let's say he fought those who threatened it, and he did something else besides fight. Like he fought those that threatened it, and he I can't think of anything right now. But anyway, something else. And then he would say, fought them in the streets, because of this, or just that he fought them in the streets, and let's say the other thing he did was, I don't know, he stole their cars. That makes no sense, I know, but whatever. And stole their cars. So fought them in the streets, stole their cars from their houses, something like that. And the point is that you can resume like that. So you don't have to just resume nouns like river, and which I called it wild river, but it's still the same river. You don't have to do it with nouns. You can also do it with other words like fought. And then, so I'm using fought here to resume rather than start a new sentence. You don't want to use resumptive modifiers too often, though. And you want to, get used to using them wisely. Continuing on. She swam across the river and almost died. A dangerous act worth the risk. Now this is a summative modifier, meaning you're summoning up all of the first part of the sentence. What is this? She swam across the river and almost died. What is that? Well, it's a dangerous act. So a dangerous act is summoning up what all of this means, what all of this is. There's other ways to sum it up. I mean, you can think of other things it is besides a dangerous act, but a dangerous act works. A dangerous act, that was worth the risk. That is, usually when you do modifiers, it has the word that, but I can remove it because it's not needed in this, A dangerous act worth the risk makes sense without the word that. These are examples where I used which and then two sentences. So it doesn't mean that these are necessary. You should never write sentences like this. That's not why they're crossed out. They're crossed out to show that they're not resumptive or summative modifiers. She swam across the river and struggled to stay alive while ignoring her cramped muscles. She swam across the river. Now, these are ways to get rid of and, right? So instead of she swam across the river and struggled to stay alive while ignoring her cramped muscles, you can actually get rid of the word and by just putting a comma, and then struggled becomes struggling. And this is an example of a free modifier. And the reason why they're called free modifiers is you can move them around. And then when you start a sentence, this is an introductory phrase. And so free modifiers can become introductory phrases. They can also become interruptory phrases. I'll just call it that, where interrupts a sentence or a clause. She swam across the river, struggling to stay alive, ignoring all the while her cramped muscles. It's kind of a more older school style there, but it's still cool and it works. In 1945, during the war, he played the piano at Shelby's bar to keep food on the table. So here we have actually two short introductory phrases before getting into the actual sentence. And as long as you have just short introductory phrases before you get to the subject, in this case he, that's fine. Those kind of introductory phrases are okay. All right, so check out the link for the Master Edit software. Give it a test ride. Thank you for watching.